out there, one of them has gotta want me.
Yeah.
Heartbreaking.
There's 500 million planets out there. And one of them's gotta want me because obviously you don't. It's real. We like go there and you know, it's a wacky space adventure, but he's like so driven by his loneliness for sure.
Sounds like it was emotional for you to make as well. Like you probably feel like going to therapy to like be having all these conversations with people about and like mining the depths of your own childhood and feelings to create this film.
Yeah, I think artists is definitely therapy. I feel like for each of the films I've worked on, Bow, Turning Red, and now Elio, I feel like I've sometimes been forced to kind of like go back into my past and like dig up these experiences, but it just makes our films so much richer, and I think that's the reason why Pixar films like resonate with audiences all over the world. And I think in order to make a film that resonates, like you have to be brave, like Elio does, like you have to open yourself up, like you have to be vulnerable and kind of like show a part of yourself that maybe you're a little bit embarrassed to show the world, because that's the goal. That's where that film goal is.
You mentioned the character Aunt Olga, and she's the one who's caring for Elio in the film after he loses his parents. And something that to me is a hallmark of all three of your films that you just talked about is that maternal caregivers are, like sometimes when we see animated films, the maternal caregiver is black or white, you know, is treated with a black or white mentality, good or bad, whatever it is, but you really give us a window into the internal world, especially of mothers, or in this case, of an aunt who becomes Elio's mom. What is it that compels you to explore maternal caregivers in that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's because I'm so inspired by maternal caregivers all around me, like my own mother, who, you know, is as you saw with Bow and Turning Red, she's a very impressive but also complicated woman, who I love so much, and I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for her. But also, like, similarly to Turning Red, like Elio has this amazing all-female leadership team. And I think, you know, just seeing how hard these moms work to try to balance work and taking care of their kids, but also, like, trying to, you know, make a multi-million-dollar movie. It's almost impossible to write a story about a one-dimensional mother figure, because, like, you know, like, that's just not true. Like, on the crew, I had the pleasure of working with Julia Cho again, who was the head writer on Elio, but also on Turning Red, and she's the mom herself. Lindsay Collins was my producer on Turning Red. She's the executive producer on Elio as well. And so having those voices in the room to kind of like balance the perspective as we were working through the story really helped. And you know, I feel like one of the scenes that I'm really proud of in the movie is in the first third of the movie, like Elio and Olga get into this really heated argument.
Look at me in the eye and one, tell me the truth. Shmipa de Gumiba. No, I'm not learning MBOE.
And there were early versions where it felt very one-sided towards Elio or towards Olga, and you know, like, arguments are hard to construct and to write and to like animate and act out, because they could very easily devolve into screaming heads like, and nobody wants to, you know, be that in a movie. So it was, you know, like, the key to that scene was just to really try to understand where each character was coming from and like what was driving their anger and frustration towards each other. And I think it was really just us remembering that, like, for Olga, she just wants what's best for him, and she's just so worried about him, and she just is so just desperate for him to be okay. Like, having that in mind, it really, you know, helped Zoe Saldana kind of like infuse her performance with that depth. And Zoe herself is also like a mom of 3 boys as well, so like leaning on her and her perspective was just really helpful as well in creating like a more three-dimensional character.
Did you understand something differently about your own relationship with your parents through making the film?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I do that with every movie I like make. I'm just like, ah, man, maybe I was an annoying little kid to my parents, and you know, realizing that they sacrificed so much and they worked so hard and they tried so hard, and even though we did get into like huge arguments, it all came from a place of love. And so yes, I think with every film I understand them a little bit more.
It's a film about family for sure, but it's also about outer space. I read that you're a big sci-fi fan, and Carl Sagan was an important touchstone to you for this film. What was it about his work that resonated, that you brought into Elio?
Yeah, I feel like Elio's probably the kid that would be watching Cosmos on TV like all the time. I feel like Elio and I both connect with Carl Sagan's like hopeful view of space and space exploration, and you know, Contact is one of my favorite movies, and that was also like very much inspired by Carl Sagan and the SETI Foundation, and this idea that space could be aspirational, it could be hopeful and wondrous and full of possibility versus like dark and, you know, like scary and full of horror and unknown beings that could come and hurt you. I love the former version of space, especially nowadays too, which I feel like, you know, like I'm really proud that our movie is kind of promoting this idea of like curiosity about the unknown, about like reaching out and connecting with beings that may not look like you, that may seem like very different, but who could be very welcoming and accepting of you if you give them the chance.
We need that message for sure. Definitely. I just have one last question for you. You won the Oscar for Val in 2019, which is so amazing and so well deserved. And in your acceptance speech, you said, to all of the nerdy girls out there who hide behind their sketchbooks, don't be afraid to tell your stories to the world. What do you hope that a lonely or a nerdy kid out there watching Elio would take away from the film?
Yeah, I hope they're inspired by Elio to, you know, to like reach out and try to make connections with other kids and people around them, and that you never know like where you can make a new friend. And I do feel like, you know, ever since the pandemic, like kids are dealing with loneliness, isolation, disconnection more and more, and you know, this movie can hopefully be a way to encourage everybody to kind of send out signals all around them, and try to make a friend and make a connection. I think that's the only way that we can kind of cure our loneliness and isolation. It has to come from us. We have to reach out. We have to be proactive about it. It's really scary to do, but Elio did it, so maybe we can do it too.
Lovely place to end it. Thank you, Domi, and congratulations on the film.
Thank you so much. It was great talking to you.
Domi Shi is one of the directors of Pixar's new animated film, Elio. It's out in theaters starting on June 20th. I'm Talia Schlanger, sitting in for Tom Power. You're listening to Q. A little while back, Tom got to talk to country music legend Keith Urban. And not to split hairs here. Keith Urban does have very good hair, but not to split hairs. Saying that he's a country music legend is really just shorthand. He's honed this blend of country, rock, pop that you probably know him for. He's from Australia, and finding his way in Nashville in the 90s, it took a while to figure out his musical style, to figure out his voice. Tom wanted to know more about that, and the two of them took a listen to Keith's big breakout hit together. It's called Somebody Like You. Have a listen.
trite, but like people singing those songs back to you on their night off.
Oh, it's amazing.
You know?
It's amazing, yeah. I mean, these songs are they're all flotation devices, is what they are. They're to keep us from drowning. Me too. You know, I look at the audience and they go, man, this song makes me feel so good. I'm like, me too.
Yeah.
Makes me feel good too. So I'm glad we get to do this together.
That's a bit of Tom Power's conversation with Keith Urban. You can watch it on YouTube or listen to it on our podcast. It's called Cute with Tom Power. In the meantime, here's more of that song from Keith Urban with Somebody Like Me.
crop report shows dry conditions are challenging farmers across the province. And minute. Producers say those crop conditions will quickly deteriorate if more rain doesn't fall soon. We're going to hear more about that. Also in your news, the Lac La Ronge Indian Band says it invested in air scrubbers after wildfires in 2015. And those are installed in halls in 6 Lac La Ronge Indian Band communities. Those halls act as fresh air shelters for residents who need to escape the smoky conditions. The chief, Tammy Cook-Searson, says those scrubbers are effective and they help to allow people to stay in their homes for longer. We're going to hear more about that, and we'll hear more stories, all coming up in your news right here at 11 o'clock on CBC Radio 1. Hi, I'm Talia Schlanger, sitting in for Tom Power. You're listening to Q. In the award-winning play An Oak Tree, there are only 2 actors on stage. One of them is the show's creator, Tim Crouch, and the other one is a rotating guest actor, often a big celebrity like Frances McDormand or Mike Myers or Alan Cumming. That actor only learns about what they're doing an hour before the show. And if that sounds gutsy, that is what Tim Crouch is all about. He's one of the most experimental artists in modern theater. He's not afraid to make you feel uncomfortable by maybe keeping the house lights on in the audience or putting actors out in the crowd, even using your keys as a character in the play. His influential show, An Oak Tree, turned 20 this year. It's been performed 350 times in nearly 20 countries. Canada is one of them. An Oak Tree is currently being staged at the Luminato Festival in Toronto. Jill Deacon sat down with Tim Crouch to talk about the power of not knowing, why he's not afraid to sit in uncomfortable moments, and why dozens of celebrity actors want to star in a play they know absolutely nothing about. Hello, welcome to Q.
Hello. Nice to be here. Thank you.
20 years is a long time to spend performing and touring the same piece of work. I know it's not the same ever, but what keeps you coming back?
Yeah, that reason exactly, because it regenerates every time, because I'm another person I've never met before usually, and has never seen the show, and so there's a whole new start to it. So to say it's 20 years old, for me it's like yesterday old, really, and then tomorrow it will be yesterday old, and the day after will be just yesterday old. So the analogy I use is of a lizard who loses its tail and then regrows it every time. So I'm constantly regenerating in the show. I need to be open and new to it because I've got a new second act moving every time.
So that actor, that second act, you play, what's that face you're making?
No.
Oh, you're just getting ready to answer?
What's intriguing to me always is that it's one of the actors who are going to do the show. Are they listening to this program? What can I give away? What can't I give away?
That was this look of
yes, a little consideration.
Look of panic going across
well, it wasn't. It was mild sort of concern.
Well, okay, let's do this. If you are listening to this broadcast and you are one of the actors who has been scheduled to perform with Tim Crouch in An Oak Tree, do yourself and your audience a favor, and please turn off your radio.
Very well put.
All right? Are we taking care of that? Okay. For everyone else, you, in this play, you play the role of a hypnotist, guiding a grieving parent through the death of their child. And these actors show up with 1 hour notice. How do you prepare them?
Well, I would say that even in that hour before, I don't tell them the show. That's what I don't do, actually. We meet because I think it's important that we establish a relationship of trust to some degree. It's a hugely responsible job for me to make sure that I can look after somebody else and put them into a place where they feel supported. But I don't tell them the show in that hour. So when they walk on stage at the beginning of the play, they know as much about the play as they will. Genuine. There are scenes in the play, they will read in the play, they will also be fed words through an earpiece in the play, but they are meeting all that stuff fresh as the daisy. You know, they're discovering it at the same time as the audience. I talk about the actor being like the audience's avatar, in that the audience is sitting in their seats and there's someone on stage who is kind of physically what's going on in their heads. which is, I think, very exciting. You said in the intro that I'm very experimental. I like to think I'm quite traditional in that, in the olden days, we didn't put the audience in the dark. We didn't put the audience in the dark. We were much more open with how we told our stories. We've become quite sort of calcified in terms of what we do with an audience and how a play should be presented, and I'm just gently teasing that stuff apart, really. And one of the distinguishing things for me in theatre is that it's live, and so what you have in an oak tree is total liveness to that degree.
And there's some pretty big names, recognizable names, that have been part of this production over the years. That guest spot has been filled by, Alanis Morissette, Peter Dinklage, Frances McDormand. But you've actually said that the celebrity doesn't really matter because the show is a leveler.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, so within a minute of this play beginning, you'll forget the trappings of any kind of public identity, and you will encounter a human being in a live moment, navigating their way through a series of live moments that tell a story, and within no time at all, you lose any sense of their public profile. The other bit, I say the play is improvised, it's just not improvised with words. We don't go to the theatre for the words. If we went just for the words, we'd stay at home and read the play. We'd get the text, we'd get it from the library and we'd read it. We go for all the other stuff, and it's all the other stuff that I have no control over. But I need the play to be a play. It knows itself. The beginning knows about the end knows about the middle. It's telling a particularly important story, I think, and it's a story that is better told by the presence of someone in the middle of it who doesn't know from moment to moment where they're going.
And the story that it tells has to do with grief. Tell me about how you are able to address that subject in a way that feels satisfying and meaningful for you in this fashion. What are you able to do and say about grief this way?
As long as those actors who might be doing the show aren't listening.
Turn off the radio. We told you that.
Well, the story tells of a man who's lost his daughter and who's turned a tree next to where his daughter died into his daughter. So she's more present in the form of that tree than she was when she was alive. And then the other character that I play is a stage hypnotist who was driving a car that hit the child, and in the 3 months since the death has lost his ability to hypnotize anyone. So in response to loss, the father has created something monumental, and the hypnotist has lost something monumental. And what's, I think, satisfying with this play is that the character that the second actor plays, the actor who doesn't know the play, is lost in the world, and that character is played by an actor who is lost in the world. And I did at one point say that I felt when I was writing this play that if I ever had that scale of loss, I would feel like I was in a play and I didn't know the words. And so there is a sort of formal meditation. I mean, the form of the play meditates on loss, something being taken from you, you being lost to something. So that's just there. It's sort of entrenched in how the story is told, and then the story also supports the form. It was the story that came first. I was never kind of going, I'm going to write a play where there's an actor who doesn't know the play. No, I wanted to write this story, but then I realized that the story would be much better if I put this device in it. I've never used the device since. I've been writing plays for the last 20 years, and I've never used the device because the stories that I tell in those other plays are better told using other forms. It's also, I think, for me, very playful. You could get a sense from this conversation that it's doom and gloom. There is an emotional heart pounding in the middle of it, but it's like two children playing. You be this and I'll be that. You say this and I'll say that. And children, if you watch them play, they don't have that same kind of character investment. They can go deeply into something and then they can snap out and then they go back deeply into something, and they don't have those kind of weird actorly tropes, if I'm in my character, don't disturb me. No, it's a very playful opportunity to rehearse the problems that exist in the world.
I know that you started your career as an actor, and I've heard you say that you started writing all these plays partly out of frustrations you had with the theater. Tell me about that. Ooh, that was a cool sound.
Yeah. Well, it was there was a hard birthing of my writing life, really, in that I was an actor and I found myself in rehearsal rooms feeling like one of the most important factors of the theatre, which for me is the audience, was often the least considered aspect. So we would talk at length about our characters and our motivation and our psychology and our realism, and there is a huge force that comes from an audience that can do a lot of the work for you. They will turn one thing into something else. They will understand the idea. So the second actor plays a father, but in the history of the show, I think over 50% of the actors have been female. I don't change the gender of that character, because in art you don't need to. In art, anything can be anything, and I felt, I suppose, as an actor, that I was losing that sense of freedom and playfulness, again, that word, where I allow an audience to collaborate in the process. So yeah, drama schools are guilty, I think, of drilling actors into processes that kind of close them off from the audience. My work is opening that relationship out to the audience. You say I stopped acting. Actually, weirdly, I've been acting much more since I started to write than when I was an official actor with an agent waiting for the phone to ring. And it's been a profoundly empowering experience to actually, you know, manifest kind of my future in the work.
Yeah.
And enable my voice to engage with some of the issues that I was struggling with as a voiceless actor.
You're listening to Q. I'm Talia Schlanger, and you are in the middle of Jill Deacon's conversation with Tim Crouch. Tim is one of the most original and provocative theater makers out there. He's the kind of artist that'll make you believe in magic with big ideas, and those ideas really have nothing to do with elaborate sets or fancy costumes. It's just about letting your imagination run wild instead of spoon-feeding a story to an audience. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry, because in this part of the conversation, Jill Deacon gets him to explain the concept with a set of keys.
Your first play, My Arm, is the story of a boy who raises his hand and holds it there for 30 years. And in that play, you get the audience to donate personal objects to be used as characters in the play, one of which I know is a set of keys.
Good work.
And I happen to have a set of keys in my pocket right here, so I want you to use this funny old keychain. I'm going to toss it at you. How does this work with the audience?
How nice that you talk about My Arm, because I have been to Toronto twice before, and both times with that play, and both times at the Harbourfront Centre. So that play begins super gently in that I ask the audience to donate objects, you know, food, cigarettes, phones, keys here. And I don't do puppetry with them. I just nominate them as the thing that I want them to be in the show.
Okay, so what are those keys right now?
Well, this is, I've got a mug in front of me. I've got a set of your keys. So this is my mum, these keys, and this is my dad. And we're a middle-class family living in the middle of the 1970s, in the middle of the Isle of Wight, which is in a small island off the south coast of England. It's kind of how the story begins. I present my family. I present objects as the house that we live in, as the dog that we have, as my dad's car. They mustn't really look like the things I want them to be, because that's the joy that I'm exploring in theatre, is that anything can be anything. We got so hidebound in, like, we need to make this thing look like the thing that we say it is. And so this playful suggestion, and also in the performance, it's an autobiographical performance about me living with one arm above my head. I never at any time in that performance raised my arm above my head. That's just not, I don't need to do that, because that image exists, and it's really stronger if it stays in your head and I don't contain it in my body, because then every one of you in the audience has a slightly different idea or an image of that thing, and that's empowering you and kind of beautifully depowering me, decentering my body, so the story of that boy exists between us. My Arm was the first thing I wrote, and An Oak Tree is kind of a response, is riffing off the ideas in My Arm, and in effect all the work I've done since then, and I've written loads of plays since then, are still exploring that fundamental. This is a set of keys. Look, my eyes tell me it's a set of keys, but my brain tells me it's my father. And I find that contradiction resolved by an audience to be the most moving and transformational thing. And it's what, you know, this is a block of wood? No, it's a figure of motherhood. This is a chord? No, it's an emotion that I'm feeling. It's what art does. It takes one thing and we see something else in it. The danger for me in theatre is that we've become so hidebound by realism that we're desperately trying to make this set of keys look like my dad, or this mug in front of me to look like my mum. We don't need it. You audience are much better, you're as equally able creators as I am. So I'm letting you have a stake in what we're making together. And that's, again, what theatre should be doing. And so that's why I don't feel it's Shakespearean in that respect. You know, Shakespeare said, I think when I talk of horses, that you see them. I'm not going to bring horses on stage, but the modern malaise is to bring real horses on stage. Look, we've got real horses. And actually, theatre can go, here are some horses, and you as an audience go, these horses are amazing, and we've generated them together.
What is the role of the kind of theater that you're making and the kind of work that you're trying to do and relationship you're trying to engage with a live audience in the room, breathing the same air with you on stage at this moment in time when fewer and fewer people are going to theaters and more people are being entertained solely on digital devices?
So, more and more I'm clinging to the rafters of that idea of a live act of communication. Theatre is slowly being eaten by some sort of digital encroaching sort of tide. The last play I've been touring was a show called Truth's a Dog Must a Kennel, where I wear an empty virtual reality headset. I put it on at the very beginning, and I imagine another world in that headset. Partly because that was a critique of how theatre is becoming more and more, the phrase I use is screenified. You know, theatre you go and see that could easily be behind a screen. And actually, look, come on, Netflix or whatever, you know, the internet can do screen really well. So if it can do it well, leave it to do that stuff. And theatre, find the thing that only theatre can do, and then do more of that stuff. So my plays are not adaptable for TV.
No.
They are pure theatre pieces, you know, and they require slight recalibration for an audience to understand that you're going to be invited to work with the audience. I don't think it's arduous, I think it's really exciting. But I need you to be in the room with me.
See, there are those who have found some of your plays arduous. I'm talking specifically about The Author, which is a little controversial. There are reports of audience members walking out, shouting at actors. So Tim Crouch, what is your objective there? Why do you, in some, you know, got the lights kept up so the audience can all see one another? You're trying to engage the audience at a whole other level there.
Yeah, well, the fact that we wanted the audience to see itself looking, because we had just two backs of sitting that face each other. The actors are seated amongst the audience. The act of looking is actually one of the themes of the play. So the fact that we can see ourselves seeing is part of the theme of the play. And that play is about the responsibility that we have as spectators to what we choose to look at. Because if we choose to look at certain things, that could be a criminal act. There is a culpable aspect to observing, you know, because by observing something, we are to some degree enabling it or endorsing it. So the author is quite grown up and serious in that respect. I would say that the first person who gets up and walks out of that play is a plant that we put in the audience who gets up and walks out. Although once in one performance, somebody left before us, which is like, no, hang on a minute. But we are asking the audience to consider where they are in relation to what they look at, and what can they do if what they're seeing is something that they disagree with. And they have an option always to leave. There's a line in that play is, I have a choice. I have a choice to stay, I have a choice to go. I choose to stay. And so, yeah, that play goes deeper and darker. It was a play that was written 15 years ago, so the culture has changed dramatically in those 15 years. And a lot of conversations are around that play, about whether that play could be done now, because there is a shift in the culture, where sensibilities are such that I think the play is not setting out to upset people, but I don't think it doesn't pull its punches, you know? And there's a danger now that a lot of art is having to pull its punches, because there is a concern that if we don't pull the punches, people will get hurt. But I think theatre is an opportunity to go to some complicated places. I think it goes there very safely. I think that play is suffused with love and hope and care, but it doesn't make the hard stuff metaphorical. I mean, it does really, but it goes right into the heart of the hard stuff. And I kind of think, I saw a production of Titus Andronicus 2 weeks ago at Stratford-upon-Avon at the RSC. I mean, if you think the author is hardcore, go and see Titus Andronicus. You know, they're actually, those actions are happening in the author. No actual actions happen, it's all in our heads. And in our heads is where theatre exists best.
All of your work suggests that you have a pretty great comfort with awkwardness. And, you know, you're not afraid to sit in feelings that a lot of people spend their lives trying to avoid. Tell me, where does that come from?
I mean, so for art to try and dissolve difficulty seems like a waste of time. To sit with difficulty is really important, because difficulty is what we go to the theatre to, I think, to some degree, well, discuss that thing. What am I talking about? Because sometimes you go to the theatre just to have a good time and to be abstracted and distracted and multiplicity of ourselves. We contain those multitudes, and some of those multitudes are really blooming hard. And so for an audience, I think I give my work a lot of care and thought and attention. I don't think I'm being gratuitous in the work I make. It takes a long time to write a play. And so if the work gets into that juicy, difficult stuff, then I'm very happy to sit there for a bit.
And why? Why are you comfortable?
I think all stems from being in rehearsal rooms as an actor where the overwhelming sort of mission in those rooms was to make things okay for the audience. And the world is particularly not okay at the moment. And I don't think theatre's job really is to sort of cover over those wounds, or to hide those wounds, or to make everyone feel great about things. I'm also not wanting to take you on a downer, because again I'm playing with you, but the play is kind of, well, go back to children. You know, children explore the hardest things in their play, and sit with those complexities, and sit with the complexities of an adult world. Children live in the same world as the adults, but we often try and protect young people from that stuff. I'm not suggesting that young people should ever go and see the author, but it's the same thing. For adults, it's like we're going to play some problematic stuff. We'll play it. It's a play. I think it's really clear these things are plays. The issue with the author was I think a lot of people thought that story was true. It was not true. I haven't lived with one arm above my head. I haven't done the things that I described in the author, and I think that's really clear. But I'm also creating very porous boundaries between the truth and the fiction, I suppose. Yeah, that's complicated for all.
There's, I'm sure, some people listening right now who, would feel uneasy about the idea of going to a Tim Crowd show where there's no guarantee of what will happen. And there's no guarantee that they'll be able to sit in the dark and be left alone. No one's going to ask them, ask anything of them or challenge them. What would you say to someone like that who maybe doesn't feel comfortable sitting in that discomfort or being nudged in the direction of thinking hard things or questioning things?
I hope the work is clever at that. I hope the work is not sort of put an audience, well, doesn't put the audience on the spot. Nobody in an actor is asked to come up on stage. Nobody. The sophistication of the play, I can say that, is that there is an idea on stage of the audience, and that's an actor who doesn't know the play, who, like I say, is on the audience's side. They are from the audience. The audience are in them. So that sense of participation is happening, but not in a crude, come up and I'm going to make a fool of you. I don't think I've done that in any of my work and wouldn't want to do that. Kind of pantomime sort of territory that I'm not greatly interested in. So I don't feel like it's the right stress on the work. I'm not setting out to make people feel awkward. I'm setting out, I think, to make people feel present.
I love it. We all need to be a bit more present.
Yeah, I think we do. Just behind the screen in our sofas or whatever, it's blissful. I'm not averse to a huge amount of that stuff as well. But sometimes I want to be in a room where I'm alive and alert to the other people in the room, and where somebody is transporting me and transforming me, and I am going with that. From the oldest, forms of storytelling, someone stand up, tell me a story. I don't need to see anything with my eyes, but I will see it all with my ears. And that's the world I want to be in. And I don't think that's scary. It's just slightly countercultural to where we're at now, because where we're at now is we spend a fortune to watch movie stars rehearse intricately, sort of detailedly fixed plays.
Such an interesting conversation, as is all your work. Tim, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Tim Crouch is known for making experimental theater. His most influential play, An Oak Tree, is turning 20 this year. If you're in Toronto, you can catch it at the Luminato Festival. It's running through to this Sunday, and I have to say, after hearing that conversation, I kind of want to hear each different actor he has do the show. It's different every night. That is so cool. That was Tim Crouch. Power Brothers deliberately choosing to lean into imperfection with their song Let It Hiss, which is kind of a fun fact based on this buzz in the studio monitors that they couldn't get rid of when they were recording, and they decided to just sort of let it breathe, let that discomfort, that imperfection part of the part. And that's it for Q today. Tomorrow on the show, for over 50 years, Sandu Cardinal has brought powerful Indigenous stories to life. She's played more than 100 roles on stage and on screen and was recently honored with the Equity in Entertainment Award. She sits down with Tom Power to reflect on her remarkable career, and really remarkable is an understatement. Catch that on the show tomorrow. I'm Talia Schlinger, sitting in for Tom Power. I'll see you next time.
This is CBC Radio 102.5 FM in Regina, 540 AM across the province.
The 2025 Inspire Awards, Vision and Visionaries, celebrating Indigenous excellence and sharing remarkable contributions of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people in Canada. 12 outstanding Indigenous achievers will be honored in a unique viewing experience, blending live action and animation, showcasing their accomplishments and cultures through a cinematic journey. The 2025 Inspire Awards, Saturday night at 7, 8 Atlantic, 8:30 in Newfoundland, on CBC and CBC Gem.
The CBC News is next, and then it's Commotion.
Okay, so it's been over 2 decades since 28 Days Later. That is a movie that reimagines the zombie thriller. The premise is, of course, a virus outbreak that wreaks havoc on Great Britain. Now that franchise is back with 28 years later. We'll hear how that movie lands in post-COVID world.
This is CBC News. Good morning. It is 11 o'clock, and right now in Regina, it is partly cloudy and 19 degrees. In Saskatoon, it's partly cloudy as well and 18. Good morning. I'm Tori Gillis. One of Saskatoon's most generous philanthropists has died. Joseph A. Ramey died last week at the age of 89. He was the son of Hungarian immigrants in the Carrot River area and one of 11 children in a farming family. He launched a construction company that built schools and hospitals across rural Saskatchewan and shifted to apartment developments across the province. His son, Barry Ramey, says even in his 80s, his father was sharp, determined, and fearless. He says it was like he never really aged.
I was at our office one day and I could hear this thumping on our roof, and I was wondering what's going on and who's up there, and it was Joe, and he was 82 at the time. There was some work that needed to be done on our roof of our office, and he climbed the ladder about 15-20 feet up to go on the roof.
Ramey was a prolific philanthropist.
行驶3公里后，下右侧出口。
Toward a Saskatchewan Polytechnic campus campaign for Saskatoon just last year. Ramey had lived with Parkinson's disease for years, but his health declined after a stroke in 2022. We told you yesterday about the southwestern RM of Big Stick declaring an emergency due to drought. Now the latest crop report shows dry conditions are challenging farmers across the province. It says crops are mainly rated as fair to good, but that producers say they'll quickly deteriorate if rain doesn't fall soon. Despite some rain in the past week, topsoil moisture conditions continue to decline. 1% of cropland topsoil moisture is rated as surplus. 40% is adequate, 45% is considered short, and 14% very short. 2/3 of hayland topsoil moisture is rated short or very short. The author of a book challenging the findings of the Neil Stonechild inquiry has won a defamation case against a University of Regina professor. Stonechild's freezing death in 1990 in Saskatoon led to an RCMP investigation, a judicial inquiry, and the firing of 2 police officers. Candace McLean published The Cold Hard Facts in 2016. That's the name of the book, and it claims to exonerate the 2 officers. U of R professor Michelle Stewart publicly called that book racist garbage. The court ruled the comment was defamatory and awarded McLean just over $6,400 in damages.
I'm very pleased It's a slightly delayed reaction because it's been 8 years in the coming. But I'm very pleased because I feel this sends a message to activists who feel they can get away with anything.
下右侧出口
Used a breach of contract by contacting venues and urging them to cancel McLean's book signing events. Stewart has not responded publicly. It is 3 minutes after 11 o'clock, and right now it's partly cloudy in both Regina and Saskatoon, and 21 degrees in both cities. This is CBC News. Ottawa is putting together plans to help.
行驶300米后向右转
But there are some complications. Airspace over those areas is closed because of the ongoing missile attacks. So Foreign Minister Anita Anand is urging Canadians to cross into neighboring countries such as Turkey, Armenia, and Jordan.
Once Canadians have crossed the border into neighboring countries, we have consular services available to
向右转
are heightening our consular services, deploying more consular